Chris Buescher wins at the Glen and playoff drivers have trouble, so let's get into it. Coming up next. What's going on, everybody? Hope you're doing good today. All right, Chris Buescher gets the win. Obviously not in the playoffs, didn't make the playoffs, and gets this win exactly maybe 2 races too late for him. Although he has had a great season, this, however, is his 6th win, placing him all alone by himself and 78th on the all-time win list. 5 of those wins have come in the last 3 seasons with RFK, which itself has turned around here recently. And when you look at Chris Buescher's career, it starts to kind of remind me of a Martin Truex Jr. or a Sterling Marlin. He spent the 1 year over there at Front Row, then 3 years at JTG Doherty, then several years at Roush before it became RFK, where he's been technically at the same organization, but now it's RFK for the last 3 years. But in these last 3 years, he has really turned it on, and it does remind me of a Martin Truex Jr. or a Sterling Marlin, who they spent all that time at the beginning of their career. And even when they were with good teams, they got with good teams that were maybe in a bad situation at the time, but then maybe in the latter part of their career, they start to really turn it on, and you see the talent that's been there the whole time, but now they have the cars beneath them to show that talent. And that's not a shot at Front Row or anything. Front Row is very good team right now, but back then they were not. Of course, Front Row, where he got his first win at Pocono 2016, the infamous fog race where they couldn't continue because of the fog. But like I said, with RFK now, RFK the last 3 years has been really on top of things. A combined 6 wins since they transferred the name to RFK. 3 playoff appearances between the 2 drivers. So big win for Chris Buescher, but it was not an easy win by any stretch of the imagination. Although he led 19 laps, he still had to pass SVG at the very end. SVG got him on the restart, moved him out of the way just a little bit, or the 17 came across his nose. Either way, it was just good, hard racing. I didn't see anything wrong with it. But anyway, Shane Van Gisbergen had the lead there and then missed the S's, touched the wall just a little bit, got the car out of shape. And Chris Buescher, instead of getting mad about the contact or, letting his mind wander, he just stayed and hit his marks. And he was close enough when that mistake was made that he put himself in position to get that win. That being said, good run for SVG. And also for Kaulig. Kaulig not having the season that they want, but they continue to show that on road courses, if you want to win a road course, you're going to come through them. Now, obviously, A.J. Allman qualified well and had a good car until he had some mechanical issues with the transmission. So he was fast as well, but Kaulig's still out there, at least on road courses, chasing trophies. They needed this positive momentum. They didn't get the win, but the second place was definitely a good thing. But, of course, SVG's ride at Kaulig is basically being rented out by Trackhouse, so you got to say it was a good day for Trackhouse as well. And SVG, just go ahead. If he's this good at road courses and he's going to go full-time next year, just go ahead and pencil him into the playoffs next season. That's pretty much a no-brainer to me. He is going to win one of these road course races before the playoffs next year, I think. So go ahead and pencil him in for the playoffs. So that's a good thing for Trackhouse. Another good thing for Trackhouse was the man that finished in 4th place, and that is one Ross Chastain, who led the most laps today. 51 of the 92 laps that were run were led by Ross Chastain. A weird sort of change-up of the pit sequence. He got caught out on a caution that did not help him or SVG for that matter, but then they flipped it on him, and it did sort of work out for him in the end, even though they didn't get the win. But yeah, good run for Trackhouse. And then Connor Zilic, their guy, of course, in the Xfinity Series, in his first race in the Xfinity Series, getting a win as well over there. His ride, of course, being rented out for JRM. So good weekend for Trackhouse, even though only one of their cars technically was competing for the win. Their drivers were competing for the win with other teams, which is an odd thing to say, but it was a good weekend for Trackhouse. So I talked about 1st and 2nd and 4th, but I didn't talk about the 3rd place finisher there, which of course is Carson Hocevar. Hocevar getting a nice 3rd place finish, and his teammate Zane Smith was in 5th place, so good run for Spire. In fact, all of the Spire cars were in the top 10. Corey LaJoie with an 8th place finish. That's going to help him going forward. Of course, he's looking for a ride as well, but good day for Spire as well. But you notice we haven't talked about any playoff drivers yet. And this is the top 5, so let's just jump into the top 10 and we'll discuss what happened to the playoff drivers. And in 6th place, Chase Briscoe, your first playoff driver there for Stewart-Haas Racing. Good run for him. He was up there mixing it up with them. Didn't quite have the car that Buescher, SVG, or Ross Chastain had today, but definitely a upgrade for the Stewart-Haas driver who is holding the banner for them in the playoffs in their final year before they go just to Haas Racing once again. Michael McDowell, 7th place finish. He did not have the car either, but you know what he can do on a road course, and he basically showed that driver alone can get that car where it was today. Corey LaJoie in 8th place, like I mentioned earlier. Good run for him, good run for Spire. Hopefully this helps him out getting a ride going forward. I do think he'll be in the Rick Ware. I think he's already got one, but in my opinion, he's going to probably be racing at Rick Ware Racing next year. Anyway, Ryan Preece in 9th place there, 41 car, another Stewart-Haas car up there, and a good run for him. You don't really think about Ryan Preece as being a road course racer, so good run for him. He needed a good run. Hopefully he can finish out the year strong, and he's definitely a guy that needs to finish out strong and hopefully get a good ride going forward. Austin Cindric, the only other man in the playoffs in the top 10, finishing 10th. And it's looking like right now Austin Cindric's got a lot of good momentum in this playoffs. He is probably going to make it in the next round, but we'll talk about the points here in just a minute. Noah Gragson finishing 11th. And then you got a slew of playoff drivers here from 12th to 15th. Had to go all the way to 15th to talk about some playoff drivers. How crazy is that? 12th, Kyle Larson. Daniel Suarez, 13th. 14th for Christopher Bell. And 15th for Joey Logano. So yeah, it is definitely an odd day when you got to talk about 12th basically through 15th to talk about some playoff drivers having good finishes aside from the 2 playoff drivers that finished in the top 10. So what happened? And I think we got to point out cautions, but let's look at where the other playoff drivers finished first. Starting here in dead last, 38th, Ryan Blaney broke the rack and pinion steering. Some component within that steering system broke with some very slight contact from somebody in that wreck. It was just really kind of a freak thing to have happen. And then you go up here to 34th, William Byron, of course, that crazy wreck with Brad Keselowski where he climbed the side of the car. Thankfully, Brad was okay. Thankfully, William's okay. Brad could have heat checked the tires or tread depth checked them or whatever he wanted to do. That tire was pretty close to his window. And then you jump up here to 27th and 26th for the aforementioned Brad Keselowski, and 27th here, Tyler Reddick. So bad race for them as well. Of course, incidents after incident. I don't know how many times Tyler Reddick got spun in this race, but it seemed like a lot. And of course, Brad Keselowski in that aforementioned William Byron wreck. And then Harrison Burton. The dream is going to, for the dream to keep living for Harrison Burton, he's going to have to do something big here at Bristol. And of course, Denny Hamlin here in 23rd, driving that just completely torn up number 11. Ty Gibbs also had some crash damage as well in 22nd. And so that, to me, was kind of the story of this one. 7 cautions for 21 laps. And most of those cautions coming toward the end of the race. We did have 2 extra laps. We went to 92 laps instead of 90 laps. So we did have overtime there. So the cautions did play a huge role into that. And the cautions are the main reason why a lot of these drivers in the playoffs finished where they finished. So another chaos race. And it's also going to be a chaos race going into Bristol. And we'll touch on that in just a minute. But let's jump to the points. There you see it. After the Watkins Glen race, Joey Logano, of course, locked in. The only driver so far in these playoffs to win a race that is in the playoffs. Christopher Bell, plus 46, second. Austin Cindric is in 3rd place right now. Like I said, plus 43. He is on to the next round. A lot of people did not have him going into the next round. Alex Bowman into the next round. Daniel Suarez, plus 36, also strongly into the next round. And even with the trouble, Tyler Reddick still plus 30. Chase Elliott also plus 30. They're tied there for 6th. Ryan Blaney in 8th at plus 29. He's probably pretty safe, and so is Kyle Larson, as long as nothing happens at Bristol. Same thing with William Byron, as long as they stay out of trouble in Bristol, which is a big ask. Like, Bristol can get crazy if something wrecks. It gets really narrow really quick there. But as long as they don't have trouble, they should be in. They've got a pretty good cushion. But here's the guys that really cannot relax. You have to have a good Bristol no matter what. Chase Briscoe and Ty Gibbs, both at plus 6. They're tied for 11th, but basically at the cut line. And then minus 6, Denny Hamlin. He's definitely within striking distance points-wise. Bristol, he's a good short track racer. Bristol, a good track for him. So we'll have to see what happens there. And man, the points penalty for the mistake that TRD made with the engine is really, really evident right now, because without that, Denny Hamlin would be 11th in points, and he would have at least a little bit of a cushion. Still wouldn't be in great shape because of the finish, but man, you got to think about that penalty there, and it's basically on TRD according to everything that's been released. Brad Keselowski minus 12, Martin Truex Jr. minus 14, and Harrison Burton only minus 20. Minus 20 seems like a lot less than it could have been for the finish that Harrison Burton got there. But yeah, minus 14, minus 12, not anything that's not insurmountable. It can be overcome, especially with some stage points. So yeah, 11th all the way to 16th is definitely still undecided, and Bristol, like I said, anything can happen there, so I don't feel like anybody is safe. The other thing we do need to talk about here, though, especially since we're going to Bristol, is the tires. There was a lot of tire fall off. The tire wear was really good, and I thought it made for a really good race. You had comers and goers. There was different strategies on tires, and that's what really shook up this race at the end. There was a lot of passing because of the tire fall off. And then, of course, going to Bristol, where there was a lot of tire fall off. Now, I don't think we'll see it as crazy as it was in the previous race here this season, because the teams will know how to adjust the cars for that type of tire fall off now that we're going back there for the second time. But I do still think you're going to see significant tire fall off at Bristol, and that is going to make for another wild race in this already wild round one of the playoffs for the NASCAR Cup Series. So buckle up, because I feel like Bristol Saturday night is going to be just as crazy, if not crazier, than it always is. But yeah, that's all I got for you in this one. If you made it this far, would love to have your subscription. If not, I'll just keep making these things. If you're already subscribed, you know I appreciate you all as well. If you got a question, comment, or anything like that, drop it down in the comment section. I try to get to as many of these as I can. And if you want to help out the channel, visit the merch store. The link is in the description. We've also got this QR code right here. So if you want to pause it and do the QR code thing, if you like doing it that way. But if you buy a hat right now, the t-shirt in the cart, when you put a t-shirt in the cart, the t-shirt will be free. So buy a hat, get a free t-shirt. And I think that is all I have to say about this one. So thanks for your time. Peace.